Hi, I'm Pastor David Stone, and I'm here today to talk about brokenness. A few years ago, my wife had a Precious Moments figurine that she put on a shelf that I had installed on a wall at our house. And the shelf one day fell off the wall, and her Precious Moments figurine was broken. I felt bad about that, so I tried to repair it, but you could see every crack in that figurine. And I gave it back and said, "I'm sorry, but it looks like we're going to have to throw it away." So I was surprised when I found it back on the shelf. And when I asked Jill about it, she said, "I decided to keep that as a reminder that I need to forgive." I thought that was a beautiful sentiment, and it's almost the idea of the Japanese concept of kintsugi. Kintsugi is a form of repair of pottery that shows beauty. See, it happened that there was a shogun in the 15th century, Ashikaga Yoshimasa, who had broken a valuable vase that was used in a tea ceremony. And so he sent the vase to China to be repaired, and when it came back, it was repaired in the style of the time where they take staples and staple the pieces together. It's just an ugly repair. So artisans in Japan decided to try to find a way to repair pottery that was better than that. And what they knew, of course, is that when pottery breaks, there's no way to make the breaks disappear. They will always be there. So instead, they decided to make the breaks beautiful. I made this vase and I broke it so that I could repair it in the style of kintsugi. What they do is they take lacquer and they put a shiny powder in it, like gold or silver or some other shiny powder, and they use that to repair the breaks. So instead of hiding the breaks, they actually accentuate the breaks and make them beautiful. This really fit with the philosophy of the Japanese wabi-sabi. That's an aesthetic philosophy that basically says nothing is finished, nothing is perfect, and nothing is permanent. And so the philosophy is that we need to make our peace with the idea of imperfection and impermanence. Not even just find peace with it, but to find beauty in it. And so that's what they did. It got to be so popular, people were actually breaking valuable vases in order to have them repaired to make them more valuable because they were done in the kintsugi style. The reason this is interesting to me as a pastor is because I believe that's what God does for us. You and I are broken. There's different kinds of brokenness in our lives. First, there's brokenness that's done to us. Maybe you've come from a family where you were abused. None of us has perfect parents. Some of us have worse than others. And some people grew up with abuse. If that's you, that's a brokenness in your life. Maybe you've been betrayed by a spouse or a loved one or a friend. Maybe somebody has done something terrible to you, and you carry that around with you and you are reminded of it in your own mind all the time. That's brokenness. There's also the brokenness that we do to ourselves, our sin. There are things in my life that I think about and I think, I wish I had never done that. But that's the thing about brokenness. You can't go back in history and change it. And so we're stuck with it in our story, in our life. And for some of us, that makes us feel like we're second best, or maybe even worthless. But the beautiful thing is that God not only is able to deal with your brokenness, but He can use it for His glory. Let me read to you from Ephesians. It is by grace you have been saved. And God raised us up with Christ and seated us with Him in the heavenly realms in Christ Jesus, in order that in the coming ages He might show the incomparable riches of His grace, expressed in His kindness to us in Christ Jesus. For all of eternity, we can be an object lesson of God's kindness and His grace. And he goes on to say, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith, and this not from yourselves. It is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." And that word workmanship can be translated as masterpiece. We are His work of art. And the brokenness in us does not detract from that work of art when we give it to God and allow him to bring healing to our brokenness. We can be beautiful in the broken places. I think this is a principle that God practices all the time. You think about it, when Jesus was crucified and buried and then raised again, he still had scars. He showed them to Thomas, remember that? And why, if God brought him to life, couldn't he have healed those scars? Well, obviously he could have. But those scars were symbolic and expression of God's love. And those kind of scars, you don't want to cover up. You want to glorify. Jesus' scars were examples of God's love. And so are yours if you give them to him and allow him to forgive and to heal.